This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. We are two reporters in Syracuse, New York. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us. Be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Y'all know, road to 10K. I'm sick of saying that, but we really are almost there now. It's different.
I think we can see the end of the road. It's in sight.
It's clear.
Yeah.
It's clear. We're here today to talk about the Mets and some of the good things that have been happening, also some of the struggles. We have some injury updates and beyond. So let's start here. The Mets are 69-61, 7 games back in the NL East, and we're trying to figure out whether or not there's still a fight in the division.
Yeah, really, really important series this week. Obviously, when you get to late August, all of the series have meaning and are important for those playoff spots, but 3 at home against the Phillies at your place this week. If the Mets are going to make a move here, if the Phillies haven't already wrapped up the division, which they may have, now would be the time.
And again, at your place, to me, is the important part of that sentence. You are at Citi Field, okay? This is the time that you need to capitalize on that. And last week, there was some not capitalizing happening. There were some lowercase letters even.
Can I just say, like this team, if we are going to look back on this season and have some regrets, right? Last year, you can look back on that whole run, no regrets, right? Everything that happened was crazy, but you don't really regret any part of that. This team just continues to give away games every single week, week in and week out, that you kind of feel like are winnable, right? This week, again, you lose 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, which they suck. I say inexcusable, but they're just not a good team.
Mind you, Ashley was there, so she's extra pissed off.
I was there, so I'm extra mad, and they lost. My loving boyfriend surprises me with Mets tickets, loss. Winnable game, I'll get into it. And then you win at 2 out of 3 over the Braves, but you feel like you should have swept that series, right? Sunday felt like that should have been a win. Wednesday night, I said it, I was in DC, I was at Nats Park, lovely place to watch a ball game, I should add. They just never get the big hit in that game. They lose by a run. Also, Senga is low-key a disaster. We'll get into that in a moment, but he's been a mess lately. And then they dropped the series finale after that. Anthony DiComo said it, and he's right. Losing 2 out of 3 to a team like the Nationals at this point in the season just cannot happen. The Nationals have the worst bullpen in the majors, and it's not close. They're bringing guys out of that bullpen. You've never heard their name. They could be an NHL player. I don't know. I've never heard their name in my life. And the Mets are up there. They can't get a hit against them. They got 1 hit off of the Nationals bullpen in the final 2 games of that series. 1 hit.
Nasty. It's just nasty. And I think when you mention regrets, it is important to keep that in mind, because even I'm seeing stats today about how the Mets are 0-53 in games where they were trailing through 8 innings. I don't even know how that's possible. I mean, there are going to be regrets this season, unless in the postseason, if they make it, they're able to go on a run. Then all I think is forgiven. But beyond that, don't tell me that Mets fans and New York fans in general, who quite honestly are unforgiving, and that's okay, don't tell me that they're not going to have some gripes about this 2025 season after what they were promised.
0 wins after you were trailing in the 8th inning. 0 walk-offs, 0 big hits in the 9th. Zilcho.
That, to me, is where the regrets are going to happen. How, out of those 53 opportunities, did you not capitalize on 1?
Not only that, not only the late innings, but here's a stat that might make you cry, because it nearly made me cry when I was putting these together via Jolly Olive, via
John Boy,
that's what I was looking for. The Mets have a 12-20 record in 32 games against the Braves, Nationals, Pirates, Orioles, and Rays this year. All of those teams are 5 games below 500 or worse. Just a 500 record in those games, just splitting those matchups, would have them at 71-56, 2.5 games back of the division with 7 games to go versus Philadelphia. They have not been able to capitalize late in games. They have not been able to capitalize against bad teams. Obviously, the playoffs is sort of a new slate. It's sort of a whole new ballgame. We saw that last year more than anyone, right? More than any fan base. Mets fans saw that the playoffs is a whole new scope, but they just haven't been able to beat up on good teams. You just think about, that's the perfect culmination of me. I'm sitting here thinking about last week for the Mets. All right, it's not a bad week. You took the series. You took 1 series, dropped another. Shouldn't have dropped the series of the Nationals. I guess it is a bad week. But in 7 days alone, I can think about 2 games and say you should have won those. It seems like all year long, I can go back and find 2 games a week where it's that should have been a win, that should have been a win, but it's not.
And even if it's not should have, could have even.
Would have.
Should have. I don't know. But honestly, if it could have been a win, then sometimes it should be. And I think that's the point. This is a team where truly, in the beginning of the year, I was predicting 95, 98 wins. I really thought they had that kind of talent on their roster. And the crazy thing is, maybe I'm just delusional, but I still do. I honestly still think that I'm not saying I still think they're going to win 98 games. I'm saying I still think they have that kind of talent.
Yeah.
They have that kind of roster that could make a deep run in the postseason. But again, how much is could have worth? Not a lot. Zilcho, I might even say.
Zilcho. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah, and you're just left with this feeling, right? You can't figure this team out. Honestly, I don't even want to go over all these games in the Braves series, but there's bright moments, right? You almost felt like after Friday and Saturday, there's an uptick here in morale. McLean pitches on Friday. They win 12-7. Everybody's hitting. Soto's 3 for 4. He has 4 RBI. McLean pitches 7 innings. They bring up the 22-year-old Nolan McLean, became a starting pitcher yesterday, and he's out here throwing 7 innings, and no other Mets starter could do that for, the whole entire bulk of the season. So Nolan McLean has looked fantastic. 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. His ERA through his first 2 starts is down to 1.46. I mean, I know it's been 2 starts, so I'm not going to get too high here, but really feel like McLean might be the real deal. And if they do go on a run here towards the postseason, I feel like McLean is going to be a big part of that.
Also, genuinely, who cares that it was only 2 starts? It was his first 2 starts. To me, that matters. There's pressure involved with that.
Absolutely.
You have to make a name for yourself in the beginning. I mean, his first start was remarkable, but for his second start to again be that consistent, again, we're seeing all of his pitches that he has in his arsenal. Everything's on display with this guy. It is very clear to me that in some ways McLean is the future of the New York Mets. I think he's someone who, to your point, years down the line, you're going to be thinking, yep, everybody knew that from the first time he stepped out on the mound, that he was going to be a difference maker. Now, that being said, I think there are still some other, changes in the rotation that you're going to need to make, and if you really want to make a playoff push here. So that's something we'll talk about. But I have nothing but good things to say about what I've seen from McLean so far. Then you get into Saturday. Right, you said 9-3 win over Atlanta. And Vientos, McNeil, both have 2 home runs. To your point, everyone's hitting. It feels good. But then there's that question of Sunday. And what do you do with that 4-3 loss when you know in your head? To me, that's going in the category of should've.
Yep. Could have. Holmes has a deep start on Saturday, right? Vientos is getting hot, and this is important because I think Vientos has been an underrated missing piece for them in terms of what he was last season. Obviously, the sophomore slump, we've talked about it, but he's starting to hit again. He found his power this weekend. He hit 3 home runs. He still has a chance to eclipse 20 this season if he gets hot. So Vientos getting hot, I think, would be a really big catalyst for the lineup. But the hitting lately, like you just alluded to, is really not the problem. They have been scoring runs lately. This Mets team, I know, was a problem in June and July. The runners in scoring position, all of that. They have been hitting. They are hitting 313, 377, 588 with 30 doubles, a triple, 32 home runs, and 87 runs over their last 13 games. 87 runs in 13 games. There were 12-run games in there, 9-run games in there. There were high-scoring games that they didn't win in there, and yet they are 6-7 over their last 13 games. That, to me, is a glaring problem, right? Because we've talked about the bullpen, but now, a couple turns through the rotation here, it's starting to become a trend and a pattern that you can only really rely on Peterson and the newest kid on the block, which is Nolan McLean, right? Holmes had a good start Saturday, so we'll give that to Clay Holmes. He's been solid this year, right? He's had some good stuff.
Yep.
But Senga and Manaea, which we'll talk about in a second, just have not been really giving you what you sort of bought into, what you thought they're worth.
Yeah. How are they 6-7 during that span? I don't know. And that's the kind of thing that will trouble me when I go to sleep at night.
Troubling.
It's a little bit troubling, I have to say. It's unsettling is maybe the word I would use.
Unsettling.
We are going to get into the pitchers, but before that, we may as well just mention, yes, the hitting has been going really well for the Mets. There is one guy who is probably going to need to step it up. Pete Alonso has not been doing so well. In his last 9 games, he is 5 for 40, 3 walks, 1 home run, 4 RBI. Not what we've been seeing from him, which in my eyes, for the better part of the season, has been, hey, give me a great contract.
Yeah. Pete's been deep in the dark woods as of late. I know he had a great start to the year, and he's going to end up with good stats, to finish the year in terms of when you look at it as a whole, but he has been ice cold lately. McNeil's been hitting. Like I said, Vientos is getting hot. Soto and Lindor have shown flashes, so the lineup has not been the problem. Sunday just sucks, right? It's a 1-run loss. Peterson, another good start wasted by Peterson, 2 earned runs in 5 2/3. Gregory Soto was kind of the villain. He imploded in the 8th. He's been pretty good this year since they got him at the deadline, but not the time, imploded, not the time for a G Soto meltdown. But then they actually rallied, right? That's the whole thing we were just talking about. In the 9th inning yesterday on Sunday, they rally. Soto has an RBI, two runners on, first and second, 1 out. Alonso goes up there, he just whiffs. McNeil like pops out, game over. See you tomorrow. Like, come on, it's right there.
No, I know, I saw that. That pop-up was, I felt pretty gutted when I watched those highlights.
Whiff from Pete.
Yeah, it's like, dang, And again, I think we've discussed this in the past, but the thing that ends up feeling the most upsetting about it is that the 2024 Mets wouldn't have done that.
No.
That the 2024 Mets would have found a way. And I think baseball is just too unpredictable of a sport, and there are too many teams that are too close in terms of talent level for you to not have a little bit of luck and fight on your side sometimes. 0-53, it's not feeling lucky to me. It's not feeling, I don't even know what it is in those late game rallies, because is it talent? Is it hope? Is it a positive mindset that the collective group has, right? Like, you have that talent all the time. So what's the difference between teams? I'm truly asking this. I would like to know from people in the comments. What's the difference between teams who are able to make those late game rallies versus the teams that aren't? Is it a talent thing or is it something else? Because I would maybe go as far as to say that the 2025 roster does have more talent than the 2024 roster. And yet, here we are. Do you need a guy like Jose Iglesias who you don't have this year? Is there just that one guy who gets those rallies going? I'm not sure. But they need to figure that part out, because if not, it's going to be a problem come playoff time. It just is.
I said it once, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it 7 more times in the next 6-7 weeks. You don't sign Juan Soto to get the 3rd NL wild card. You just don't.
You just
End
don't.
of story.
And I get why people are disappointed by that. Let's get into it. We've been chomping at the bit. There's a pitching problem. It's really a Senga Manaea problem. Ashley just puts, this is the root of the issue, period. When there's a period at the end of her sentence, she's upset right now.
I have
she's
found
upset.
the root.
I found the root, and now how are we going to address it? Frankie Montas is out for the year with a UCL issue. I mean, okay. But also, no, hold on. Let me just go back. I am just hoping that he gets better.
Yes.
I think we're both, of course, hoping that he gets better. But I think even if he didn't have an injury, that time and that question was coming.
Yes, I absolutely do not ever root for anyone to get injured. I hope that Frankie Montas makes a full recovery and continues his career somewhere else besides on the roster of the New York Mets. Obviously, don't root for injuries, but both Montas and Blackburn were such a large problem. They've now been sent to Siberia, and that means I can sleep a little bit better at night, knowing at least I don't have a lot with this Mets team this year. I'm grasping at a few straws, but at least I don't have to watch Frankie Montas every 5 days, because that was a dark time for me. Regardless.
I actually wouldn't go to a Syracuse Mets game he was pitching at, man.
I'm not going. I'm literally not going. I didn't go to a game at Citi Field because Frankie Montas was pitching.
I know.
Anyways, back to Senga and Manaea. You have to identify here that, right, Senga's been a different pitcher his last few starts, and Manaea has just not been very good since he has come back from injury. And that is something that, while maybe the Mets weren't counting on, maybe they should have. Maybe they should have seen that coming when you have an injury that keeps you out, pretty much half of the season. John Harper had a bar this week after Manaea's last start. He said, at this point, the Mets rotation, other than Peterson and McLean, consists more of bulk relievers than starters. Manaea obviously isn't the same guy as last year. Velocity down overall, dropped to 90 mile an hour by the 4th inning today. Maybe it's the elbow, but he's a 3 to 4 inning pitcher. Manaea, through 7 starts, has a 5.15 ERA. Now, I know he's got those chips floating around still. He's going to have surgery in the offseason. So I am absolutely not just trying to rank on Sean Manaea. This could very well be a health issue with his elbow. But the problem remains that if you're the Mets, I don't want to hear from anyone right now that Sean Manaea is your game 1 or game 2 playoff pitcher. He is not. I don't feel confident about that in any way, shape, or form. David Peterson, we need to give the guy some flowers here. If the New York Mets had to play a 3-game wildcard series right now, you can give me David Peterson.
You can give me David Peterson all 3 nights.
All 3 nights, in fact. Maybe a little Nolan McLean special appearance.
Yeah, sure. He can take game 2. No, I totally agree. And yes, you're right to say that injuries change players. So maybe they should have predicted this. I'm not sure. But the point is, now it does officially feel like there is a hole. I'm on worry watch with Sean Manaea. That's the place that I'm at.
I'm worried.
I would go. It's worried o'clock at this point, and we need to see what the rest of the year is going to hold. You know what I mean? Even for Senga, he's been 7-5 this year, 2.58 ERA. Very good start to the season, but Ashley points out that in the first 14 starts, he had a 1.39 ERA, and in his last 6, he has a 6.00 ERA. I mean, that is stark.
If you look at Kodai Senga and you go, he has a 2.58 ERA for the year. Oh, Kodai Senga's having a good season. Yeah, no, he just built himself that much of a pad. He had an ERA in the ones through his first 14 starts that he can afford the little slide as of late. It doesn't hurt his overall stats too much, but he hasn't been a guaranteed bona fide, win his last 6 starts. And I don't know, what do you attribute that to? Do you attribute it to, getting tired as you head down the stretch? Do you attribute it to, I guess, some of those injuries that plagued him last year and the beginning of this year? I don't know. But the broader point remains that the 2 guys that you thought were your 1A and your 1B at the start of this year not only don't look like themselves from last year, but they don't look like they're going. I mean, I just don't trust them headed into the playoffs this year, right? Like, even Sean Manaea, I said it in the offseason. You're basically counting on a guy to replicate the best season of his career. And now he's dealing with injuries. So when that's what you're counting on when you're David Stearns, I wouldn't say I'm shocked to see that that's not exactly panning out.
I would say it was a risk from the start. Yeah. Right? And this unfortunately was a risk that for now I might say doesn't end up paying off. Because that is the other part of it is, I feel like going into this season, I don't know that I would necessarily say that any of the pitchers were the ace. I think always going into it, we sort of thought it could be a 1A, 1B, even 1C situation where there were a couple of guys who were sort of on the same platform. You could even probably put Peterson, Manaea, and Senga in there. But look at the way that it turned out. Baseball is a complex sport, but maybe that is a good reason why the Mets should have an ace, should have somebody who they can religiously count on, because it feels like right now that's missing. So the question becomes, what do you do now? You're looking at ultimately 2 guys, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, and some interesting things have been going on with both of those dudes. So the Mets, I think, are working out, okay, what are we going to do here? They tried out Sproat out of the bullpen this week in Syracuse. That was a problem. Sproat has been on an absolute heater. His ERA has been way, way, way down, but he comes out of the bullpen, and this is the line. 3.2 innings pitched, 7 hits, 7 runs, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. If you've really been locked in and you've really been watching Sproat, that doesn't take away from all the things he's done.
No.
He is a very good pitcher, and I would still at this point be absolutely comfortable with him going up and getting a shot.
Yeah.
That makes things hard, though, because I think if you're a Mets decision maker, you're thinking, what do we do now?
Yeah. He's been one of the best pitchers in AAA the entire summer. Yep. I think you're right to say that it doesn't take away from it. It does show you, however, that that was kind of a failed experiment, right? Guys get in their routine. Brandon Sproat's now been used to being a starter. He's used to getting ready before the game. He's used to knowing that he's the first guy out there. He's used to knowing what day he's going to pitch. That was the day he was supposed to start, and then they changed it to bringing him out of the bullpen. I think because Mets decision makers just sort of wanted to see how he would do in that role, right? And maybe have him out there for a few less innings to kind of preserve that arm if they need to give him a call to come up. The Mets ruled out a need for a 6th starter here as we go down the stretch, and I think some of those Senga Manaea concerns sort of exacerbate that, right? So when you see that from Sproat, now I'm thinking maybe it is a better plan to have Sproat just come in and get a turn through the rotation to make it a 6-guy operation, especially when you think about the depth concerns and the Holmes pitching limit concerns. Give him a day instead of having him be, relief out of the bullpen, right? Because I don't know. I know it's only one time. Maybe the Syracuse Mets will continue to tinker with that this week. I'd be intrigued if they did bring Sproat out of the bullpen 1 or 2 more times to see if things got better. But regardless, that's how the first time went. Here's a real wild card, and the fever pitch on this one is growing and growing, right? Because the Mets have been conservative this season with their 3 sort of bullets in the gun, right? McLean, Sproat, Jonah Tong. Tong, the youngest out of all of them. Tong, he was in AA all year long. Just got called up to AAA, has made now 2 starts. He's been borderline unhittable all year long. And I think it's only natural when you have a fan base that is starving for quality starting pitching that people are starting to look at this as an option, right? Sometimes in terms of these postseason runs, in terms of if you're in a desperate spot, which I would say they kind of are pitching wise, you got to burn the blueprint. It seems to be working out pretty well with McLean, and I'm not going to say that'd be the case for Tong or Sproat. But I think conservative sort of has to fall by the wayside here when you're 7 games back in the division. It's high time. Jonah Tong, like I said, has only made 2 starts in AAA. It's a little crazy. His stuff is fantastic. He's baseball's number 44 prospect. He's 22. He has a 1.43 ERA through 22 starts this season. 2 scoreless AAA outings, I should mention. And he struck out 8 across 6 scoreless in his last start. He had like 21 swings and misses or something. I mean, utter domination would be how I would describe Jonah Tong, at least thus far. And so I don't know, like tell me in the comments, do you think it would mess up Tong's development and that it would be foolish to maybe even surpass a guy like Sproat and bring up Tong first?
Here's what the journalists are saying. Mike Puma says the wind has shifted in the Mets organization in recent days regarding Jonah Tong. His name is entering the conversation for this season. He is scheduled to pitch tonight for Syracuse. That was last night or a few days ago?
A few days ago,
A few days ago. Then John Heyman says, texting with former GM who believes Tong's stuff will play in MLB, especially early with unique delivery. Quote, if I see 21 swings and misses and I have a need, I'm absolutely giving him a shot. Otherwise, you're not doing right by your ball club. He could be a lightning in a bottle guy. Look at
It's
look
giving
at the smile. Oh
it's
my
giving.
God, you're
No,
evil.
I started smiling. No, it was a happy smile. I started smiling because I started thinking about Terry Collins. You got to give us a shot. You got to give Jonah Tong a shot.
No, and listen, I like how you say it is time to throw conservative by the wayside because who freaking cares? Like at this point, all Mets fans feel like this isn't where we're supposed to be.
No.
All Mets fans see that this is going downhill. And what you have right now in the starting rotation is just not working. It hasn't been working for a while. Even when the Mets weren't hitting with runners in scoring position, I would say if anything that maybe took the blame a little bit off of the pitchers, but they were still having their struggles even then. Now that the hitting is actually heating up, if anything, it just puts a spotlight on the pitchers and the starting rotation even more. And you're really starting to see why this is going to be a problem. I don't think that there are a lot of things in baseball that are consistently true and true all of the time. But one thing that is always true is that if you do not have good, consistent pitching, you are not going to make a deep postseason run into the playoffs. It's just something that you need.
I think it goes back to how we started this episode, right? No regrets. You felt like last year's team had no regrets. I think there's going to be a large contingent of Mets fans, and I know it's a wild card. I know it's, but what do you have to lose at this point, right? The pitching is not getting it done for you night in and night out, except for maybe 1 or 2 guys, maybe 3 on a good rotation turn, right? What do you have to lose by giving a guy like Sproat, who's done the better part of 2 years in AAA. Like, Brandon Sproat has been here all year long. He got called up at the end of last year to Syracuse. Brandon Sproat, you're no longer messing up Brandon Sproat's development if you call him up. Guys like 24, like going on 25. Same with Nolan McLean, right? Okay, McLean had a little bit of a speedier rise through, but he's up now. Jonah Tong is the only one I say you might actually look at that and say that's premature and that's jumping the gun. And I can understand people who are in that camp. But McLean has worked out thus far. Sproat could be another one. Like, what do you have to lose? If you're talking about no regrets, I think it would be a regret from me if they continue to lose, 3-4 games a week that seem winnable because the starters aren't keeping them in the games when you got Brandon Sproat out here twiddling his thumbs in Syracuse. That to me would be a regret.
I totally agree. Not to mention, every time that the starting pitching does not go, let's say 6 innings, it is more and more taxing on the bullpen. And I think long term, that is something that you have to be thinking about. A part of baseball to me and truly winning a World Series feels like who can keep their players the healthiest for the longest. Isn't that a part of it here? And I think a part of the way that you do that and you have a little bit of endurance is by keeping your starters out there longer. McLean was a big, big success. That was a big key to all of this. But the hard, cold truth is that you're going to need more. And the great news is you do actually have options to try out. Let's just say they tried out a guy like Sproat and he blew it. It'd still just be 1 game. That's why I don't understand why not try it. Sure. And at least then all the fans can see that you gave it a shot. And then the fans don't have anything to say. It honestly just gets Mets fans off your back. Like, you'll get support again and garner more support when people can see, hey, that wasn't working, so we were quick to make a change. I think New York people and fans like to see that. They like to see action and change if things aren't working. We've spent enough time seeing whether this is going to work or not. It's not. why not try out a guy like, for me, I'll go Sproat.
Yeah.
Because I do think with Tong, I could see it if people are on both sides. But like, really, who the hell knows? I like how you just say, like, why do you need to follow the rules sometimes? Can you just break a rule? Like, okay, that is kind of crazy. He's only had 2 starts in AAA. But sometimes like crazier things have happened. Yeah, like why not just give it a shot and see? By the way, obviously he is now in AAA Syracuse, so anything we can do to go out there and get an interview, we'll do it, and we'll try and get him on for you guys.
And my final point there is, if your promise to the fans, which it was David Stearns, that you're not out there trading for a starting pitcher at the deadline because you feel confident in who you have in the organization, aka Sproat, aka Tong, aka McLean, who's now there, then let's see who you have in the organization. Let's at least come through on that promise. Don't give me coach speak there and say, oh well, we didn't get anyone at the deadline because we like our guys. Then let's see your guys.
Let's prove it. Thank you guys so much as always for joining us. We will see you back here when the next big thing happens. If we can get Sproat or we can get Tong for you, we will on this podcast, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks again.